Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Flyover Live. We're coming to you from Liberty Street on Mass Ave in downtown Indianapolis. Let's get started. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for this week's episode of Flyover Live, a weekly podcast talking about the latest sports, entertainment, and political news from the eyes of three Midwestern millennials. I'm your host, Cliff Dennis, and I'm joined here by Brent Pierce.
Cheers.
And Mark Berry.
Thanks for having me.
You know, it's always a pleasure, Mark.
It is.
But before we get started, I just want to mention all of our social media handles. So we've got Twitter and Instagram at Flyover Live, and then Facebook, facebook.com/Flyover Live. So check us out, like us, and go on iTunes, subscribe, all that stuff. And I just checked recently on the Google machine that we are coming up on a Flyover Live Google search. So we're just making it easier and easier for everybody.
Google, finally. Took 5 episodes for Google to catch on, didn't it?
Yeah, we're finally making a name for ourselves. But anyway, I want to start like I do every week with what's going on with you guys. Brent, I know you had a big weekend. How'd your weekend go? I know you had a fundraising event. Is that right?
I was back in my hometown, and we do a softball tournament fundraiser every year. For my brother who passed away about 5 years ago, and raised some money in his name and fund college scholarships and some county park improvements. So good turnout. Cool. It rained until like 10 a.m., which like jeopardized the tournament, but it stopped and it dried out, and so it wound up being a nice day weather-wise. And fun was had by all. Raised some money.
Nice.
And then I don't want to get into this because I'm still a little chapped by it, but went to the Colts game last night.
Well, I mean, we were going to get to it at some point.
What a bruiser. Yeah, so we can touch on that later. But yeah, that was my fun, eventful weekend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mark, anything you do this weekend?
No, nothing as exciting or productive or charitable. I sat around and, watched some football and didn't do much else. So a big weekend for me.
Yep.
I'll give you fun, exciting there, though, man. And then let's get to
that's the most I think we've ever gotten out of Mark for a weekend
Seriously,
activity.
one word,
though.
nah.
Yeah.
I felt like I needed to pick up the slack today.
Well, I was with Mark watching football with friends, so we hung out at a friend's place up in the great northern Westfield. Not
really beautiful this time of year.
Not aptly named Westfield.
No, it's not.
But
it isn't at all.
But yeah, we watched some football games, and then I watched my Liverpool guys draw to a pretty terrible Norwich team, and a little disappointed in that. Yeah. But other than that, Mark's a Chelsea fan, and I saw some dramatic footage from their match this week.
Oh boy!
Like
felony assault?
Yeah. Felonious.
I did not watch any footage. I just saw a score, which was a win. So
that's a win. Yep. One of your players is going to be out for a few games, I imagine.
Is it Demoya?
It's all right. They have more.
Diego
Costa.
Costa. Yeah.
Costa.
Really instigated some stuff this week.
Apparently there was some real nasty stuff that went down in that game. So
Let's go blue.
He seems like one of the, he's always getting into it with people.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's something where he just gets beat up a lot and then he is just kind of
let's blame everyone but him.
No. I didn't. No, I have no idea what happened. So this is I'm coming into
the
this
Ron
blind.
Artest.
No, but he just always is in the middle of everything. So I wouldn't be surprised about anything that happened really. Because I don't know, and I'm ignorant to the situation. So everything
that's
that
a good
I'm
excuse
saying
for defending him.
Yeah, everything that I'm saying could be wrong. I'm not defending him at all. I'm just saying he's in the middle of everything.
Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty bad scrum, and then he was flailing his arms, hitting somebody. Anyway, we can move on without having the highlights.
With fans?
With fans. No, with
he didn't go full Artest.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a corner kick, flailed his arm.
Semi-Artest.
Several times.
There was definitely some flailing, some punching going on. But no innocent fan was sucker punched in
That's
the
not that
face
bad,
or
then.
anything. Yeah, that's fine.
It's
acceptable.
I started backtracking the minute you brought up our test. So I was like,
Oh boy.
Well,
No,
yeah.
it's Meta World Peace though, right? Sorry,
yeah.
for the fans out there, he
Yeah,
did change
sorry.
his name.
Let's be technical and legal
Yeah,
here.
he's
He did
in
change
life
his
now.
name.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, we can go right into the Colts game. I mean, that was last night. It was a devastating, depressing loss, 20-7 to the Jets. What do you got to say about that, Brent?
How was it live? Well, I mean, the beginning was it's always exciting
To
in soil.
first touch on the high points before we just start beating the heck out of them.
The pregame atmosphere.
Lucas Oil is like the Carnegie Hall, right? It's an amazing venue. We did the whole Georgia Street beforehand, tailgate, and downtown was just like all blue, and it was just this great. The scene was set, and then we get there, and we were sixth row, 20-yard line, good seats, and you could just tell from their first series that it was going to be a continuation of the Buffalo game, and that continued through. Their only touchdown was basically a super athletic play from Moncrief that, a short pass over the middle, he turned into a touchdown. So, I don't know what else to say. I think that, and we've touched on this on the show before, but I think the Pagano-Grigson Irsay drama is having much more of an effect on the team than people thought
Want to admit.
beforehand.
Yeah.
Well, it does seem that way, especially with some of the post-game comments from Pagano. It seems like it sounded like he was saying that Luck played poorly, and he did, but it was more likely shots at Grigson for not being able to upgrade the offensive line, which is something that seems like a no-brainer. If you have an awesome quarterback, maybe protect him instead of getting 12 receivers when you only play 3. I don't know.
Pagano effectively said in that, which he did. I mean, and I'm not going to lie. Luck has been the golden boy, almost criticism-free for a few years now. He's played 2 bad games in a row that you can't, he's going to have to shoulder the blame for those. I mean, he's getting some blitzes and pressure in the pocket, but when you're preseason the favorite to maybe win the Super Bowl and to be the MVP, you can't have games like Andrew Luck is having. And so, and what Pagano said was effectively, hey, it's been a bad line for 3 years, which for me basically is a subtle jab at Grigson and front office not getting Luck a good line, but also he said, listen, this is nothing new to Andrew.
Yeah.
Deal with it. So
I don't know. No one likes to be 0-2. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think by the end of the season, these could be the two of the 3 best defenses in the league. So get them out of the way early. If things don't turn around when they play some of the crappy AFC South teams, then there's a problem.
Sure,
but right now, bad
you're not in panic
bad games
mode,
happen.
yeah.
You just don't. It's just magnified when they happen to start the season.
Yeah, back to back to start it didn't make anything any better when the next week New England goes and beats Buffalo. What I mean?
Badly.
So it's after we get just trounced by them, New England goes and pretty handily beat. So the narrative around the whole Colts Patriots thing is the Patriots are sizzling right now. Tom Brady's just throwing touchdown passes in his sleep, and we look like the Browns.
Yeah.
So
I'm not too worried about it. I feel like as a guy who's in his 3rd season or 4th? Luck.
He's entering his 4th, right?
So his
he's
4th
just turned
season.
26.
You're allowed to have a bad couple stretches of games, but I guess it's just how you bounce back from it. 2 games in a row. I think Zach was saying when he was here from the Indianapolis Star. Listen to that episode, everybody. We're spoiled around here. He's going to have a couple bad games. It's just how does he bounce back from it next week? Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
If it turns, like Mark said, if it turns into an issue with our AFC South
If they can't
competition,
score
then-
touchdowns against Tennessee,
Right.
then there's a bigger problem. But
Right.
I think Buffalo and the Jets are going to be some really tough defenses this season.
But I agree though about the Grigson and Pagano and that kind of drama going on behind the scenes. It's like, you got to be on the same page with those big picture strategy things. But yeah,
have to be. And I think, I think I saw where our next 3 games, at least 2, are AFC South games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, Irsay is sort of knee-jerk enough to, if Pagano loses 1 or 2 or, heaven forbid, 3 of those games, he's gone. I mean, it'll be a mid-season fire. I mean, no way do you have those expectations set before the season starts and then drop 2 division games on top of 2,
Sure.
Out of conference or out of division games and keep your job. Now, I'm not saying it's his fault, because I think, there's all kinds of dynamics at play there where, Pagano just doesn't have the ability to freely coach as other coaches have because of Grigson's heavy hand. But I'm telling you, if it for Irsay, if it comes down to Pagano or Grigson, Chuck's gone.
Yeah, not worried about it. They were 0-2 last year. Luck started out slow last year.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at it.
And statistically, I guess, a fairly common slow start for him anyway. So, yeah, I mean, that was one of the things we talked about too. But, well, anyway, the other big news in the last week was the presidential debate on the Republican side that happened last week. There were a few fireworks. I think by most pundits' estimate, Carly Fiorina was the big winner of the night. And now that we have kind of almost a week of hindsight in looking at the results of that debate, I think most of the polls are are coming out saying that, yeah, she's gotten a pretty big bump out of the debate. And I think two of the biggest things that came out of the debate, or moments that people will remember for a short period of time at least, were Carly's moments. And then, Trump, I think the most shocking thing that came out from Trump was that he was silent for something like 40 minutes or so in the middle of the debate, given though that it was a 3-hour debate. So it was terribly long.
That's still pretty shocking. That's a long time for Trump to not say anything.
Trump center stage to be silent for 40 minutes is half of hell froze over right, when that happened.
So then I guess the other big story that then turned into an even larger story from yesterday was that Scott Walker had, by all measures, a terrible night, who was already struggling. And for those that listen to the show and don't follow this as closely as us, but Scott Walker is the governor from Wisconsin, had a fairly successful launch to his presidential campaign, and was leading the polls in Iowa and maybe nationally too, right when he started out of the gate.
Yep.
Has basically just plummeted, cratered since then over the summer, and really needed this debate to get himself revived and everything. And I know most of his staff was on point when it came to talking points that, Scott's going to come out punching. And he had his own stretch of 30 some odd minutes without talking. And when he did, he had maybe one moment, and it was such a canned line that everybody's like, okay, you practice that in the mirror before the show.
Didn't seem genuine. Right? Yeah.
And so anyway, the big news was that he got out of the race yesterday. Mm-hmm. So kind of big news. So we've got Rick Perry dropped out a week ago. Now Scott Walker. So we're down from 17 to 15, I think, on their side. On the Republican side.
There's still 15.
14 or 15.
Or 14, maybe.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I think one of the interesting things that he said yesterday, Scott Walker, that is, was, more of us need to get out of the way here. If we're not doing well, we're not polling well, not getting the money, we need to just step aside to try to shut down this silly season that's going on with Trump and Carson. So anyway, that incredibly long setup for your thoughts, Brent.
To the debate, I don't know. I can't watch those debates, and I'm not even saying that's a partisan
3 hours
thing.
is a long time.
Well, I would say the biggest loser from that debate was Chris Christie's knees.
Oh,
Right. That has to be. Yeah, that was those have to.
For those of you that don't know the governor of New Jersey, he is a heavy-set man.
Took a beating, no doubt. But to get to get down in it, I saw a poll today that was a good almost a week after the debate, still shows Trump up by 20. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Carly has seen a bump, but it's not really bitten into his base. It's more carved away from
Ben Carson.
The Carsons.
Right.
Yeah, definitely Ben Carson, because he had a bad
Rubio got a
debate.
little bump too out of the debate.
Yeah.
He had a couple good lines, but anyway.
So it still looks like the summer of Trump might just be the fall of Trump. The season, of course, not his demise, and then into the rest of the year. He shows no sign of sinking somehow. So, but I did, my dad, who did watch the debate, but he tends to be a good Democrat, but he said, the smartest person on that stage was Carly Fiorina.
Yeah.
He came out and just went ahead and said that, and I don't doubt that, but she, to this point, much like the other emerging folks, has not had the scrutiny that a front runner has had. So
True.
The minute she pops into that top 2 or 3, buckle your seatbelt up, Carly, because then it becomes more about less about your rise and more about why are you there.
Right.
And so
and I think that's a point that a lot of people made about Carly, was that once she got some scrutiny in her Senate race, Carly Fiorina being the former CEO of HP and ran for Senate in California, as soon as she got some heat in California when she ran against Barbara Boxer, I think people got to know her tenure at HP, and by all measurement, didn't do that great of a job. There's a lot of layoffs, stock price plummeted. So
yeah.
I think what I heard today on a lot of the pundits on like Morning Joe and stuff like that was just, that's something that she can definitely be hit on, and that's what Barbara Boxer did in California, and it worked really well.
Yeah.
I guess the question is whether on a national stage, how much people are going to parse those issues to be able to be like, the stock price went down such and such amount.
Yeah.
That means she was a terrible CEO or whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be more of an issue of how do her opponents message that.
Yeah.
Because you're right.
I don't
she's going to
think
get a
she'll
little bit
beat
more
herself. I think it'll, she's
she's good at
is
that.
a talented
communicator.
Yeah,
for
communicator. Sure. Definitely articulates a message in a way that seems passionate. But I'll tell you, she did get caught in a big old fat lie in that debate too, over the Planned Parenthood videos. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, that's
true. It was one of her biggest applause lines. Was this? She went on this very impassioned response about Planned Parenthood and sort of painted the picture of the videos that have been the released that were basically spy cam videos of Planned Parenthood leadership and used images of babies with their hands flailing and legs kicking, and that never actually happened or existed, and so it played well. It was good red meat for that audience and that base, but she made that up. That was actually a fabrication,
Sure.
So,
but to play devil's advocate here, I guess what a lot of people are saying is who's going to really, on the Republican side, fact check that kind of stuff. If they get fired up, they're going to get fired up, and you don't necessarily do that, and there's no incentive for her opponents, at least on the Republican side, to call her out on it.
Yeah.
So if she's going to get called out and
it's akin to
get the hammer thrown on, it's going to be about probably HP stuff when she was CEO and some other issues.
It's akin to Donald Trump basically characterizing every immigrant as a murderer or rapist and never getting called out on it except for by left of center media. You know, so,
and that's and I think that what the media in general, the mainstream media, and I think a lot of independents would be looking for is that, not to use a cliche, but the Sister Soldier moment, where somebody goes out of their core group of constituents and makes a stand. I think maybe a good example of what I'm referring to is, and this leads into another story from over the weekend, is the moment when John McCain took the mic away from crazy lady with crazy hair. Check the videotape. But
Yeah.
took the mic away from her when she said, Barack Obama's a Muslim. He's
Arab.
He's Arab.
He's-
He's not
yeah.
from here. And John McCain, in the 2008 campaign said, no, ma'am, no.
Yeah.
Took the mic away.
Yeah.
And
he's a good,
honest
decent
American
family man.
Right.
Yeah.
And haven't really seen that kind of quality in
let's
the
not kid
candidate so
ourselves.
far.
Let's not kid ourselves here. If Donald Trump, which I'm assuming you're referring to that story where like at a town hall, a guy stood up and said, the problem, like, this is quote unquote, the problem in this country is Muslims.
Right.
And we know our president's one of them. We got to get rid of them, sort of thing. And Donald Trump laughed it off and didn't say. But I'm telling you, in this primary season, if Donald Trump would have pulled a John McCain, it would have been a 5 to 7, maybe 10-point hit
Sure.
in his polling, because you have to just throw out that red meat and be willing to tacitly embrace like what these folks think about, because last poll that I saw of Trump supporters, 54% believe Obama wasn't born in America.
Well, yeah,
54%.
and
Think
Trump
about
was
that.
one of the birthers.
Yeah.
He was part of that movement that
Yeah.
was demanding President Obama to turn over his birth certificate. So yeah, I
Right.
mean that's not surprising.
Yeah.
The other story that I was also making reference to was Dr. Ben Carson on Meet the Press this last Sunday with Chuck Todd when he asked him about whether he thinks somebody who's a Muslim disqualifies them as president, and Carson went on to basically says, absolutely, I think that doesn't, somebody's not, could not be president. So, for a lot of folks who claim, like Carson, to be a constitutionalist and, I'm going to, as president, abide by the Constitution.
Yeah.
Article 6 flies in the face of what he's saying, because that's where it says that there's no religious test when it comes to running for public office in the United States. So he's walked it back yesterday and today in what he was trying to say, and I don't really know that there's much walking back you can do. And I don't know that I want to go out on a limb to try to explain what he's trying to walk back, but I will. He's saying that if you have somebody who's like a extremist, that just as if you wouldn't want a Christian fundamentalist extremist to be president, you also wouldn't want a Muslim Islamic,
that's not at all
extremist.
What he said in that initial
No,
interview.
it isn't.
And it's not the question that Chuck Todd asked either. So
it was a fairly
ironic,
straightforward question.
Oddly enough, and actually tying it right back to Indianapolis, Andre Carson, our congressman, is Muslim. And he's been on he went on in response on a bunch of major network shows and been talked about, how those comments are quite damaging, right? And they don't do anything to sort of like unify relations amongst, different religions in this country. And the fact of the matter is, you're exactly right. Sometimes the most strict constitutionalists have positions that fly in the face of the Constitution.
Right.
Birthright citizenship being one of them, right? As another relevant issue. I was going to just real quickly, another was on the Twitter sphere, and this great headline pops up in my feed, and it was, I don't even know what outlet it was, but it was out, Walker, Texas Ranger. Which is just like, that person needs a raise or something, that is so clever. But yeah, Scott Walker, I thought, that was a premature decision. That tells me two things. Either something's about to break, like about to go public, that, something nefarious or whatever, or B, that he's going to, behind the scenes, be lobbying for a VP. He knows that that's his angle right now, and he's savvy enough to take it. So
if you guys had to pick, and maybe this would be a recurring thing, of who you think will receive a nomination and who you think should, of the Republican side, it could be two different things, and then obviously we're really far away from knowing anything, but what would you say at this point, like in this early kind of stage?
I still think that Bush, one of the best ways I think that people have that follow this kind of stuff religiously one of the best measurements of who to put your money on is by looking at the betting agencies in, I think, the UK or wherever they keep track of these things. They're usually spot on who's going to win, not necessarily polling, because that can fluctuate like it is now with Trump being ahead. And that still has the vast, dollar, the probability is all on Bush. Yeah. So I'd probably stick with that, because there's going to be at some point, I think most of the time, at some point in January, when we're a few weeks away from the February 1st caucus in Iowa, that people kind of wake up. And the only people that are paying attention right now are the diehards. They're the ones that are going to go out of their way to respond to these, pick up the phone and answer the call when these pollers call, and give the money and so all that kind of stuff. So I would say probably Bush. It's just he's getting, and it takes me back to what, and I was going to say you probably agree with that. It takes me back, Brent. It takes me back to what you said a few weeks ago, where unfortunately, he may be getting a pass and not being able to, folks that are the real candidates, once all the silly season is over, debate the issues, and, whether you like their positions on these issues or not, at least get them out there in the open and debate them and let the American people decide. And that's not happening. We've got Trump and Carson talking about Muslim presidents.
That's the thing, though. I think it's either some evil genius plan, like
Reince Priebus, the chairman of the RNC.
What gets, and that's the thing. It shields somebody like a Bush, an establishment guy with all the money in the world. It shields him from having to go that way, and it can make him sound like the adult in the room. And as these sort of flavor of the week folks, begin to putter out, all of a sudden he emerges with the money, with the support, in the infrastructure, but also not having taken crazy positions on issues. So if it works out that way, that does scare me, because that means he's got a ton of upside.
Sure.
Now, you can't overlook
name.
He's going to have to overcome that. Other than the fact that you can't automatically discount this sort of outsider success right now. You've got Rick Perry, who was, like him or not, he had a decent tenure as governor of Texas. Scott Walker did a ton of conservative things that should ignite the base. Both those guys are out, and they're elected officials. Guess who surged? Carly Fiorina, Trump, and Ben Carson. Right. So there's a real angst, at least in their base, against establishment, politicians. So I don't think that can quite be overlooked when it comes
to... And arguably on the Democratic side with Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about it, but, there's a similar angst, I think, on the Democratic side as well, where people are just fed up with people that are blatant, calculating politicians. Yeah. Speaking of going back briefly to Perry and Walker, one other interesting thing that I would point out for folks is to think about when it comes to our elections is this whole rise of super PACs and the money that they collect. Rick Perry dropped out of the race. His super PAC, I think, had 10 to 15 million, maybe. Maybe I'm overestimating here, but there's an article that gives you their amount if you want to look it up.
At least 10.
And they did the right thing. They refunded the money to all the donors. I'll be interested to see what Scott Walker's super PAC does, and in the future, the rest of these 14 other candidates do with that, what their super PACs do with that money. So anyway, the other big story in politics, at least around here, are twofold. One is that Democrat Tom Sugar is not running in the gubernatorial race against John Gregg, so it'll be a straight-up match, it looks like, between Pence and Gregg, or a straight-up rematch.
Yeah, rematch.
Between Gregg and Pence for governor next year. And then the other, and I guess before I leave that point, Tom Sugar took the opportunity in his press release and in his press conference to announce that he's not running, to plug his organization about gerrymandering and Indiana. And this is more public service announcement, I think, for our listeners than anything else. Indiana's got the lowest voter participation rate in the country, especially, I think, I wouldn't even say, usually we're down as one of the lowest. I think we were the lowest.
The lowest in the midterms.
Last election cycle. And so Tom Sugar's group is talking about gerrymandering, and where we are creating these districts that are just sure lock-up districts for either party, but benefit one of them, specifically the Republicans, because this is Indiana. Yeah. So anyway, look out for that kind of stuff. That's a good movement to get behind. I think it's a huge issue, regardless of party, to make things competitive. Because whether you're a Republican or Democrat, having fresh blood in the system where people can't just sit on their job for decades at a time is a good thing. Right. Just like time limit, term limits on candidates. So,
I think it'll be interesting to see if he continues the effort. I think the consensus was, at least from folks that I've talked to, is that he was going to make that kind of a pet issue to run for governor on.
I see.
So, and for those who don't, Tom Sugar, longtime former chief of staff for Governor and Senator Evan Bayh from Indiana, has a good pedigree, a lot of good connections, but just, I think combination of John Gregg having run in the last election and kind of solidified a lot of party infrastructure and money, just didn't have it in the cards to be the nominee.
Yeah.
We'll see if he continues that effort, because if he does, it's commendable. If not, it just shows it was kind of a cheap political tactic. One more thing.
I was kind of wondering, I didn't want to say it, but since you opened the door, that was one other thing I thought was, well, it's a good cause, but funny how you used this moment to do that.
Where were you on the issue whenever you were in government, years and years ago?
Right. What was the other issue you wanted to bring
up? The
up?
other thing he took an opportunity to bash in his press conference was the state Democratic Party and infrastructure. So definitely, he sort of like keyed the car on the way out. You know what I mean? It was a bitter,
lighting a flame on your way out the building.
It was a bitter press release, a bitter press conference, and it made him sort of look like. I think the quote was, "I hope I live long enough to see the state Democratic Party make the right decisions."
Oh.
So like literally, that was his quote. So, I think to call him a flash in the pan would be generous.
Okay.
So,
well, the last story I have on politics, so because I don't want to do too much here, is just that we've got a Indianapolis mayoral election coming up in November, and the first mayoral debate has been announced, and it is featuring the two candidates, obviously, Joe Hogshead on the Democratic side and Chuck Brewer on the Republican side. It's going to be a 30-minute debate. It will be on Channel 8 with Jim Shella as the moderator at 6:30 p.m. on October 16th. So that's something to look forward to. I think voter registration, at least in the state of Indiana, is October 5th. So you can go online quite easily and register if you haven't already.
13 days.
Yep, 13 days away. You can go online, indianavoters.in.gov to register. It's super easy. I'm probably going to put a link up on our Facebook page. Yeah. Maybe tweet it as well. But it's super easy. I've done it before on my iPhone, just helping somebody out. Like, get registered.
Yeah. It's very you can
vote.
you
I don't
put
care
your
who you
name
vote
in,
for,
check where you
just
live,
vote.
and see if you're registered. And if not, do it. It's 2 clicks away effectively. So.
And then lastly, in national news, at least news, politics side of things, we got the Pope coming to town. I know we talked about this last week, but he arrived today at 4 p.m. Joint Base Andrews, D.C.
The old papal touchdown.
And so he meets with President Obama tomorrow, and then he'll be delivering an address to the Senate and House joint session of Congress. Pretty big deal. I mean, the Pope coming to town, coming to the States. So I just wanted to bring that up. I don't really know what I have to say about it, but Mark's the resident Catholic.
Are they showing the Pope's addressing the Senate like on TV?
I think so, yeah.
If
you want to get up at 10 a.m.
It's a big deal. A joint session of Congress never happens. You know what I mean?
The funniest thing about the Pope addressing Congress is that there's a lot of rules, which rightly so. because the Pope doesn't want to turn it into this big political thing. He doesn't want to get on one side or the other. So there's an article about how, there's no fist bumps, no like handshakes, no selfies, no like, because when the president does the State of the Union, everybody camps out for days to get a spot along the aisle so that they can get a shot with the president. And now it's like a selfie with the president these days. So there's none of that for the Pope.
I just want the Pope to come in and go ham and just be like,
just drop the mic.
That's what I
and
want. Yeah. At the end, just poof,
so
smash
that's the other thing. There's no applause lines or anything. It's not going to be like the State of the Union. Like there's all these rules. I was like, that's actually kind of cool now that I read through them all, because it's going to be. Hopefully people abide by them.
Which begs the question: if you don't want a political event, why are you addressing Congress? You know what I mean?
Well, true.
But hey, I think
because he's addressing the UN the following day. So if you're going to make an address where you're going to tiptoe around political issues, the UN is just as good a place. But
I guess, does he, like when he goes to other countries, does he address their parliaments or their bodies of, legislative bodies? I don't know if he does
that's
that or not.
That's a fact-checking question that
we'll
I don't know.
We'll get back to you guys on that. I
I
don't know why he's doing that here, but I think it's a good thing. It's Mark, you should know this, but isn't his
Mark's
his
Catholicism
flock like 2 billion or something to that? It's like an insane amount of Catholics around the world, right? I mean that.
I do not know this.
Okay.
there's a lot of them.
There are. I think it's in the billions, and a guy like that, especially who's been so outspoken on important issues.
Great fish fries. Great fish fries.
Don't they? Yeah. Hey, I think it's a good thing.
I do have a couple millennial stories I wanted to get to, if you guys want to talk about that.
Hit it.
So
Bring it.
one of them is kind of written, conservative magazine, the Federalist.com. I think it was it's a magazine still.
It's it's a publication still.
Okay. I didn't know if everybody just switched over to online, but basically this article is about millennials and marriage, and Pope Francis coming. It's kind of disputed. He may have used this as an excuse to come to the States for his visit, but the main reason why Pope Francis is coming to town is Philadelphia's World Meeting of Families. It's a religious organization, I think. But anyway, this article is about millennials and their faith and marriage. And so the fact that there's just tons of studies out there talking about millennials who have postponed marriage, record low rates of marriage in their 20s and 30s. But then this study that comes out that this article is focusing on, where millennials at an extremely high rate of 80% still say that they believe in the institution and that they would love to get married. Just keep pushing it off. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up. Throw that out there.
I thought I might let you unmarried 30-somethings talk.
That's true. Brent's married. He's already jumped in.
Yeah, I was 29, so I think
I would say I'm in the 80% that would love to be married at some point in time. It's just, and I think part of what this article doesn't get at, because it's a completely faith-based article, is that I think a lot of millennials want to find that person that's right for them. They're not willing to settle. A lot of us came from families where there was a divorce. Statistically speaking, it was higher for us than any other generation. So I think we want to take our time in choosing that partner. I don't think there's anything bad about that. It's just it is what it is at this point. We're kind of dealing the cards that were dealt to us as
I've also seen statistics where, not the longer you wait, but like there's an age range of where marriages are more successful than others. And if you get married super young, say early 20s, you don't have as good a chance as staying married as if you do like in your late 20s, early 30s or whatever. So there is some science behind like that waiting to, make the right decision.
Mark, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think you guys pretty much covered it all.
Mark is not going to touch that one.
Oh, boy. It's
the
third rail here.
There's a third rail of discussion. Yeah. The other article was about how to recruit millennials for your business. And so apparently PricewaterhouseCoopers announced that they're going to offer $1,200 a year for a total of $10,000 over time, I guess, to help pay for their employees' student loans as like an added benefit. So other than your salary and healthcare and retirement benefits, there's the student loan. So I kind of was surprised by the article, thought, oh, wow, that's a really cool idea. But then after I thought about it a little bit longer, I don't feel like it's anything different than what a lot of companies do to pay for education. If somebody's going to go to night school and better themselves, why not pay student loan debt? It's just we've done it on the front end. We've made the investment ourselves on the front end, and now these companies are using that as a recruitment tool. I think it's a great idea.
I think they're going after that's two different cross sections of the country, right? So if you're going after like the 22 or 23-year-old who hasn't worked at a place yet, that's going to pay for his or her tuition, then they are saddled with debt, and that appeals to them. But I used to work at a company here in town that would pay for a master's degree. Mm-hmm. So if you want to attract talent because they want to further their education beyond a bachelor's degree, then you pay for a graduate degree. But I think there's a lot of merit to, and this has been a recurring topic, right? How saddled with debt millennials are, especially if you're, I don't know what's the company do,
PricewaterhouseCoopers, they're a financial company.
So if you got a guy that's studied finance who comes out at 22, say he's got 80 G's or something in debt, that would appeal to you.
Business consulting and accounting.
Well, it appeals to you pretty big time. So I think it's a great way to cater your benefit. When you sit in an HR meeting and you say, listen, this life insurance plan, it's going to knock your socks off. That's not going to be as attractive as, listen, if you want some money knocked off your student loans, courtesy of us, you need to come work here. So
that's kind of how I took it too. It's just how you wrap up money, like whether
cater
it's
your benefits,
whether it's a
package
bonus,
to,
whether it's anything like this. This is just using the buzzword student loans because
they could have easily done it as a bonus. They could have just easily
but,
called that a bonus back in the day.
And let's get real. I'm not quite sure what loans are and debts are, but $1,200 a year.
I mean,
it's
not going to do a ton for me.
As much as it can raise it as an issue, I think is also one of the things I'm looking at. I get what you guys are saying. You can wrap whatever bow you want on a $10,000 benefit.
Some compensation difference they're making.
Right. But at the same time, the more this comes to the forefront of student loan debt being an issue, the more that I think the elected representatives and policymakers will address the issue because they need to, because it's a huge one. Now, on the fun side of things, I've got a couple articles here. One is that Heartland Film Festival, which we'll probably talk about more in October, starts in October. But I've got an article here that from this week, talking about how they've Heartland Film Festival, for those of you who don't know, pretty big, one of the biggest, I think, independent film festival in Indianapolis, very large one in the Midwest in general. But they crossed the $3 million mark in terms of how much they have awarded over time to independent filmmakers. $120,000 they're giving away this year. They do show some fairly, larger budget independent films, but they also have a category just for folks from Indiana. So anyway, that's coming up soon. That's really all I wanted to bring up about that one.
Do you guys, because you're the resident film and entertainment
guys
buffs here, two questions. Have you ever been in anything that's been featured at Heartland or any?
We've gone to the
around
Indy
town?
Film Fest.
Indy
I
Film
don't know about Mark, but I've only been to the Indy Film Fest. That's the smaller kid brother of the Heartland Film Festival.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I guess I shake my head no, but that doesn't really work in an audio medium. So no,
I got you. I read you.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'm Mark's.
Well, that's cool though. That's good. Yeah.
And then the other article I came across was previewing the fall TV season. I don't know if you guys have heard about any shows that you're excited about. I think the gist of this article was most of broadcast television is way off the mark. If you want to find quality, I think that's maybe the thesis of this article is that broadcast television needs to get their act together. Cable and premium cable is just running circles around. these shows. I mean, and I see that in the promos. They just look so cheesy.
Yeah.
Whereas HBO, AMC, Showtime, they're producing hour-long movie. I mean,
Yeah.
basically a movie a week.
Yeah.
When these shows look so cheesy.
I think, just kind of looking over some of the stuff for the new season. There might only be a couple shows that I would check in on. Like, I'm curious about the Muppets just because the Muppets are awesome. But then I heard
That's one that's
but then I
kind
heard
of like
something
on my
like they're making
radar
it
as well.
a mockumentary and kind of making them all like jerks behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I want to see the Muppets be jerks because the
Yeah.
Muppets are supposed to be,
Yeah.
amazing
Well,
and magical
yes.
and
Yeah.
And that was one of the
happiest
best
happy.
reviews was for the Muppets in this article.
I think it's going to be cool.
I was sitting here putting pluses and minuses next to reviews during my day today, and so many minuses. But the few pluses I had were Grandfathered, which John Stamos, come on, great guy.
He finds out he's a dad and a grandfather like
On the same day?
Yeah.
Apparently, it's well written. It's funny.
pass.
It looked kind of cheesy to me, to be honest.
Okay.
But
I
see
mean,
the
I guess
grinder there.
The Grinder was another one. Rob Lowe, who's also
I'm a
hilarious.
huge Rob Lowe fan.
That one
so,
had
like-
that was consistently reviewed well.
And Kevin
Oh,
Arnold,
good.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Growing
Kevin
up,
Arnold.
Kevin
I just
Arnold.
noticed
Yeah,
that
exactly.
picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Fred Savage.
Have
is-
you guys seen previews for that at all?
No.
Like, oh my god, I laughed out loud during one of the I don't know if it's Rob Lowe's delivery or what, but the writing is actually really good. So
Yeah, so
anxious to see that.
The
one,
Grinder
really.
premieres September 29th on Fox. That was at 8:30 on Tuesdays. But that was that was a consistent thing. Was Fox is the only one that's kind of crushing it here.
All right.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend on the CW. That was one that got a good review.
The C-Dub?
Yeah, the CW.
Wow.
I'm not
The
sure.
kids. That's
You've
what the
seen
ki-
that one.
Are there
either.
vampires?
That's what the
in it?
kids
I
are
mean, like,
watching.
that's-
No, but lots of musical numbers. That's
boy.
what was in the review.
Yeah.
Anyway, that one had that one had, but that was it.
Anywho,
Yeah, but that was really
yeah,
it out of
yeah.
all these
That's-
shows.
I think one that I would be interested to check in on, but I don't know if I'm going to make it appointment viewing, is Scream Queens.
Oh, that was on here.
Only because I like the idea of
Oh,
it.
there it is.
I don't like. He's the
The
guy.
sorority, like?
He's the guy that did Glee and he did American Horror Story. I don't really like his shows, but it's an interesting idea because I think it's, from what I gathered, they're all contained episodes, and that can help them get like bigger stars in each
Glee-
one, and they're all like kind of horror
His
comedy.
previous
so it could be okay.
shows were like pretty critically acclaimed. Like the people liked them, right? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know if
so-
I'd say critically acclaimed, but people liked them. It's two different things.
Right, it's popular.
Glee and
but
American
not-
Horror Story. I felt like people like across
No, yeah,
the board
people
like.
watched them.
but they're not.
Oh, they weren't.
critic favorites. They have won a lot of awards or anything. But yeah, no, it's a sorority with a bloody secret past. Gets bloody again 20 years later.
But it sounds like
You
it's-
gotta love these
Yeah,
one-liners.
don't
But
ya?
it's and it's another Fox.
I want to
show.
get paid to
It's
write
another
their
Fox show.
one-liners. Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
right though. I should have put a plus next to this one. This one has a lot of good
Well,
reviews.
we'll see. I mean, we don't necessarily.
Well,
need to
except
call it-
except for Ed Martin, I don't know who this guy is, but terrible and toxic.
we don't need to.
Doesn't Ed Martin
call
sell
it a
Buicks
plus.
on the north side?
Yeah.
Probably.
Ed Martin. I will say this is going back old school because my wife and I are like behind the curve on shows, but we are watching Elementary. Did you guys ever watch that show?
I remember it being on.
No, I
Yeah.
think that it was one of those where I was interested in it and then kind of fell behind and didn't really
Yeah.
catch up.
We're watching
But
it
it's a
just kind
cool
of like,
idea.
at our own pace, and it's
It's like
actually pretty
Sherlock
entertaining,
in
man.
America.
Yeah, it's like
Oh.
Lucy Liu is Watson.
Gotta love some Sherlock.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're at the point in the show where we talk about what's going on upcoming this weekend. You guys looking forward to anything this weekend?
You know what I'm looking forward to is an IU Wake Forest game
Oh, geez.
at Wake Forest, and Mark and I were
4-0.
talking before the show.
Is what you're looking
I mean,
forward to.
Right. So, like, in a weird change of pace, I'm actually stoked about my Hoosiers who haven't lost yet, and like mad at my Colts who haven't won yet. So, if we go 4-0 in the pre-conference season, IU, knock on wood here, has a pretty good shot at a bowl game. So, But I have no plans really. It's going to be kind of a
It's
play
going to
it by
depend
ear.
what happens in the IU game. Like,
Yeah.
there could be a lot of celebrating, and there could be a lot
Yeah.
of commiserating.
Brent
So
could have
we'll
a great
see.
weekend or a terrible weekend.
It's
A
going
lot-
to be celebrating.
A lot.
Mark,
He's gonna
are
be
you-
for this.
Mark,
Yeah.
are you up to anything this weekend?
No, nothing too exciting.
All right. Well, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that we got Circle City Classic in the city of Indianapolis this weekend. So they've got a football game on Saturday, Central State University versus Kentucky State. So we've got Circle City going on this weekend, and then Circle City Classic. And then also, they weren't able to make it today. I don't know if everybody noticed. Obviously, we didn't have a guest today, but I did want to give them a plug from Upland. Upland has got a Oktoberfest this Saturday at Military Park. So you can stop by there, try some of their beers, and have a good time.
Yeah.
Check them out.
We'll
But-
do this from time to time. Just check in, get back to our roots, just talk,
Well, we talked
just
before the show
three
got
guys
started,
talking.
like just every now and then doing a show where we just like jump right headlong into news,
Yeah.
and politics and stuff, and chat through it all. So,
Well, and Mark does a good job of keeping notes for everybody. So if you want to, if you want to skip ahead to the news or the entertainment part or whatever, you can do that. You're not
Surely
gonna-
can. I wouldn't, because everything's so good.
It is.
This was
but-
just a golden episode, though, for sure.
But anyway, thanks everybody for listening. That's it for today.
All right, thank y'all.
See ya.
There's a black cloud rising, broad and wide, like a dark horizon before my eyes. Better pray for peace, guard my kin, 'cause the thunderhead is rolling